If you are a founder and you are planning to raise pre-seed funding anytime in the future, pre-seed funding, early stage founder, if you're planning to raise, you need to listen to this video. I'm going to give you the best advice that I could possibly give. This is very, very solid advice that I tell every single founder, and that is start now. I'm not going to keep you in suspense. Start now, even before your MVP. And you might be thinking to yourself, wait a second, Ed, don't you have to build something to show the investors? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about what will get you the investment dollars. I'm talking about what you need to do right now to be prepared and learn how to be a really great fundraising founder, because that's going to be important if you plan to raise. Hopefully you don't have to raise and you can bootstrap your way all the way to glory and you don't have to dilute your company. But if you plan on raising money, you need to start raising that money now. In other words, you start pitching investors right now, even before you build the product. Even if it's just an idea in your head, you need to start right now. And in this video, I'm going to show you how. If you stay to the end, I'm going to tell you the most important piece of advice that you could possibly get to make sure that you're successful at this. Before we continue, my name is Ed Kang, 7-time funded founder with 2 exits. That's just a fancy way of saying I failed a bunch of times, and I'm very upfront. And I like to say that because I've learned more from my mistakes than my successes, and I use videos like this to help you avoid some of the early stage fundraising mistakes that I've made. Not to say you're not going to make mistakes. I'm going to try to make your life a little bit easier. I'm also the Chief Strategy Officer for Startups.com. I'm part of the team that's raised over $750 million, I think close to even $1 billion for startups. I myself have raised $100 million plus for my startups, other startups, as well as startup funds. If you're part of the Startups.com community, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. While everybody's here, while you're all here, do the YouTube thing, like, comment, subscribe. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you're not part of Startups.com, check out the community. Look forward to seeing you there. Let's jump into this advice, because I wish I would have known this back in the day. But when I started doing this, I started raising funding from day one, right from idea. That helped me avoid some of the heartache and some of the delays that I ran into previous times that I was fundraising for my startups. This is what you're going to do. You are going to get your first pitch deck done. Arguably, in this process, this is the most important pitch deck. Don't worry about all the other stuff that you see out there, even on my channel and the videos. That's for later on when you're raising money, you got an MVP going. This is the first pitch deck, and all you need is 6 slides. You have the problem slide, solution, market, special sauce, and then you're going to share about your team, and then it's a non-ask slide, and I'll explain what that is. First, you're going to explain problem, and you're going to try to keep this down into 1 sentence. You're not going to put a ton of work into design and try to make this all fancy and sophisticated. A problem. Is this a problem that is worth solving? Does the investor and do the people around you understand what problem you're trying to solve? And that problem will have the size, scope, and severity. It'll be something like 10 million people spend an extra $4 billion because this is slow, expensive, and manual. I don't know. Think about it. I've got a lot of videos on my channel. I'm going to put them on the screen by the end of this video that you can see on how to do a proper pitch deck, such as my ultimate pitch deck guide. But generally speaking, you're going to put a problem statement together. Then you're going to share your solution. And the solution needs to be unique and contrarian and compelling and very concise, and it needs to solve that problem. So if you say 4 million people have this problem, they're spending $4 billion, or 10 million people are spending $4 billion because this is slow, manual, expensive. I forgot what I said. You're going to say, we have a solution, and it's unique in that way that it makes it fast, automated, and it's cheaper by 10x. That is going to solve the problem. It needs to be attached directly to the problem. So you've got the problem and the solution, and you need to make sure that they understand what your solution is. Then you're going to go to market, because if you want investors, you need to be in a market that's got billions behind it. You need to be able to say 10 million people, and if they spend $100 each with us, we're going to be making $1 billion. Something like that. You're going to be explaining very, very clearly that this market is big enough to warrant the investment and the investors are going to make money. And if you can't calculate that market, you can't extrapolate and explain to investors there are more than 10 people or 100 people and show that this is going to make at least $100 million a year, then that is going to be an issue, because investors won't know how they're going to make their money. If you have 100 customers, you better be able to prove that there's $1 million that you can make from each of them for $100 million, because that's a unicorn. If you got 1 million customers, then get $100 from each of them. You're going to have to explain. And you can't do this top-down analysis and say, cybersecurity is a $15 trillion industry, or it's going to be, quantum computing is going to be a $15 trillion industry. That's a top-down analysis. That means nothing to the investor. That goes all the way back to the problem. If you say cybersecurity is broken, that's not a problem that investors can say, I'll make money with this. That's just your opinion, and it's so general, and your solution can't solve that problem. You can't say, banking is broken, the creator economy is broken, social media is broken, our society is broken, environment's broken, or people don't like this, or people don't like that. That's just your opinion. You have to make sure that you've analyzed the market. You're going to explain the market. Then you're going to have the special sauce slide, and that's where you're going to say, this is how we plan to do it different. This is how we are different. It's not going to be the regular cookie cutter thing. You can't just AI wash it and say, we're going to use AI to solve the problem. How are you going to use the AI in a different way than all those other companies out there? You're going to explain the secret sauce, and you don't have to do a big instruction manual. You just have to have a very clear slide and say, this is how we are different. This is why we think that we will take a crack into the market and we'll start getting market share. The market is huge. We're going to do it differently than everybody else. You're going to be contrarian. In other words, you're going to be opposing something innovative. It's something unique. There's a special sauce to what you do, something that you can say, I know something that the other founders, the other competitors do not know, and the investor has to believe it, has to be believable. So you're going to have to make sure you got your team slide. And the team slide is going to be, this is why I can pull this off. I've won a Nobel Prize. I've already exited a previous startup. That's probably not you, but something to that effect. You're going to say, I've worked at this industry for so many years. I've been in front of the problem. I've talked to all these people. I've got this expert. I've got these advisors that are going to work with me now. You're going to have to explain the team. And if you are not related to the problem, solution, and market size, you're so far away that there's not founder market fit, well, guess what? It's not going to go your way. So you need to make sure the team is related to all those other slides and shows this is how we are different. We're better. We know it. We worked on the problem before. We got so much domain expertise. Or you can rely on us and you can bet on us because maybe you are a Nobel Prize winner, or maybe you've won some Olympic medals, or maybe you've got a Guinness Book of World Records under your belt. Who knows? But it needs to show that you can pull this off, especially when startups get tough, because they always get tough. Finally, this is the non-ask slide. This slide, you're going to not ask for money. Do not ask for money. I repeat, do not ask for money up front. You're going to say, we plan to raise money in the future. If this is validated, we'd love to stay in touch. Or I like to do this slide. It's sneaky. I say, not raising money at this time. And a lot of times, I don't even know if I'm going to be raising money. There are many startups where I don't raise money. And then I say, guess what? I might raise money and I get investors interested because they're still going to help me validate the idea. You have to understand that there are two reasons investors will invest, and they're both emotional reasons. That is greed and FOMO, fear of missing out. And you want to play on those two things. That's the reason you put all these other slides up, and those will be rational. But at the end of the day, this is an emotional decision. The rational part will help the investor justify the decision or sell it to their other partners or their spouse, to the committee, which I have to do. I have to make rational decisions and present rational evidence. But in the beginning, it's all emotional. And it's going to be those two things. Greed. Oh my gosh, we're going to make so much money. My money's been sitting there. I need it to make money. I want to make a 20% or 50x ROI on that money. And people get greedy. That's the reason people invest in things that they don't necessarily have expertise in. How many people went in and bought Bitcoin without even knowing that Bitcoin did this and did that? They have no technical knowledge of Bitcoin. They just see the market and they say, you know what? I can make money in Bitcoin. Your barber's talking about it. Everybody's talking about it. I'll make money on Bitcoin. And that's how investors start to research the space. So if you can show that unique value proposition, you say, this is a big market and you're going to make a lot of money if you invest in this, that's the number one reason. The second reason is FOMO, fear of missing out. It has to do with greed, but it drives them saying, I'm going to give you better valuation. I want to jump in sooner than later. So they see other investors investing in the space, like AI. The initial investors that got into OpenAI, they're not taking any money anymore. You put your money into the big funds like Sequoia, A16Z, you partner at Y Combinator, but you can't put your money there anymore. So guess what happens? You're going to miss out on the AI revolution. So everybody starts chunking in, and then the momentum takes care of itself, such as investing in NVIDIA. A lot of people invested in NVIDIA and they're investing too late, like right now. If you invested a couple years ago, that was the best time, but people get fear of missing out, FOMO into stuff, and that's another reason where it might not be the best time to get in or it might not be the best valuation for their money, but they're worried that you're going to pass them by, and so they start saying, here, take my money. And that's how you start to use your ask slide, because you're setting them up for greed or FOMO. The first 5 slides sets them up for greed. Here's a problem, solution. This is a unique way that we're doing it in the market, and the team is amazing, and you're going to make a lot of money if you bet on us. And then you say, we're not taking money yet, and they start going, wait a second. If I don't put my money in right now, then what's going to happen? They might find another investor, or if I wait too long, then you're going to say, I'll keep you posted. How about we stay in touch and I'll let you know how things are going when we get to this next milestone. Create that FOMO, sink that hook in, and then slowly draw them in, because that's what's going to make your life easier when you do need the money, if you do need the money. Again, that's a sneaky way. I say not raising money at this time, and I've had investors say to me, Ed, are you going to ask me for money? And I say no. And they say to me, well, Ed, and this has happened, they say, Ed, if you would have asked me for money on this, I would have given it to you. Keep me posted. And later on, when I send an update, congratulations, everyone. Just want to let you know that we're now open for investment. Or I say, hey, guess what? I'm patting myself on the back because we just hit an inflection point. We just sold our first customer. We just passed this key milestone. And then all that FOMO starts to sink in because that greed has been set up. And then they start thinking, wait a second, if I don't get my money in, what's going to happen? That's the game you want to play. And that's the reason it is a non-ask slide. You do not need to ask for money right from the beginning, because you're probably practicing all the way up to that point in time, and you're probably not further along enough that you can warrant a good investment at a good price, and that's okay. Get ready and set that foundation up right now. Start now, set it up right now. Then you're going to create a list, and here's what your list is going to do. It's FFA. So there's friends, family, and associates. So you look at all your friends and you write them all down, because friends know family. Family, rich aunts and uncles, like the uncle that bought Bitcoin at $300 or just exited out of a big real estate play. Then you've got associates. These are people that they associate with. And they might be friends or family, but they associate maybe at work, or they met someone, they golf with them, poker club, who knows, but they're associates. And then you're going to organize them into A, B, C categories. A is you personally know them, B is you professionally know them, and C is the cold call. And you're going to contact your A list of friends, family, and associates. Start with your friends because they're the easiest. You're going to contact them and say, hey, can I show you my deck? You'll send it ahead of time, or say, I need to practice this pitch. What do you think? And the friends aren't necessarily going to be the investor. Maybe the family won't be either. You'll have people that know and can refer, but you want to practice with them, because here's the main point. You would rather bomb in a friendly environment with friends and family rather than professionally associates. That's your A list. They're going to give you honest feedback, and you're going to ask them, what do you honestly think? Do you even understand? Is my problem solution, my market size clear enough? Am I saying something different, or do you have resistance? You're going to ask them questions in the beginning. You're going to use the mom test, because you don't want people to lie to you. And I like to use questions like, if you knew you couldn't offend me, what would you be saying right now? And you will ask them for the feedback, and then you'll ask them, who else do I need to talk to? And they'll keep referring you into the other networks. Sometimes what will happen is they'll say, stop, do not talk to anyone. I have a founder experience this. He told me the story. Someone said, a friend he worked with in the past said, do not talk to anyone until you talk to my guy who wants to invest in your company. Start with the friendlies, the people that you have the most close personal relationships with. You know their kids. They know your kids. Maybe you helped raise their kids. Maybe you babysat their kids. Maybe they babysat your kids. I don't know what that looks like, but you're going to use those personal connections to practice, because this is very important. You're going to get feedback not only on how you're raising funding, you're going to get feedback on your product, your idea. It's going to be validated or invalidated, and it's going to make you think, because the last thing you want to do is get all up in your head and start creating a product that investors don't care about, and especially customers don't care about. So you might as well start from day one and start pitching from day one. I like to pitch and even see if it's a good idea at all before I justify putting a single line of code down, investing a single dollar in bootstrapping an MVP. I test the market, and that's very important. And that's what my ABC FFA list is all about. Starting with those A's, then let them get to the B's. And eventually, don't worry about the C's. Those are the cold calls. You'll eventually get to them, but don't worry about them right now, because you want to be totally prepared. So stay away from the C's. I'd stay away from the B's. I stay in the A's right in the initial stages. And finally, this is the best advice I'm going to give you. You need to understand how to develop a relationship with brutally honest feedback even before you build. It's very important, because when you start to build, your heart and soul go into it, and emotionally you start getting invested, and it sucks to get feedback. Let me explain this from a creator standpoint. You're watching this on YouTube, and I have a lot of people come to me and say, how do I become a YouTuber? And I tell them, make 100 videos one at a time first, and then come back and ask me. This is advice that I heard from other successful creators. Why? Because if people spend all this time creating one video, they get so emotionally charged and invested in it that they don't hear the feedback. They get into cognitive bias. They start thinking to themselves, this is going to be the best thing forever, and everybody's going to love it, especially when you're plunking away at your computer and you're starting to develop your startup. You think it's the best thing. It'll be the best thing since sliced bread, and creators do that as well. And when they get feedback, and it's brutally honest, nobody watches it, nobody cares, nobody buys the product, then everybody gets so heartbroken that they lose that momentum and they just stop completely. The only way to do it is to iterate as a creator over 100 times. If you look at my channel and how many videos that I've put out, that is 100 plus 100 plus 100. I think I'm at like 300 videos right now before I got monetized, before I figured out to get my channel what people wanted to hear. And I had to get brutally honest with myself and get that feedback and have people tell me, Ed, that video didn't make sense. And it's going to be the same thing with your startup. It's going to be that startup didn't make sense. And you're going to iterate your pitch, your unique value proposition hundreds of times. I have a startup. It's a video game company, and I am literally on iteration maybe 50, and I'm going to continue going because I'm MVPing it with cards, and I'm making it very easy to do this MVP with cards. But if I chunk down the $100,000 that I got quoted to create a video game and it didn't work and people didn't buy it, well, guess what? It's not going to work later on, no matter how much money. I'm going to be in sunk cost fallacy. I'm going to keep chunking money into it. So save yourself the effort. That's the reason I pitched it first. Then I came up with a very simple MVP based on what I've pitched. And I started to get some feedback, and it's been positive. So I know what to work on. Same thing as being a creator. Same thing as raising funding. You're going to keep getting brutally honest feedback because bias is going to kill you. People, when they can't handle feedback, they protect themselves with all the cognitive biases in their head, and they start swirling inward, and they don't listen to the market. Bias will kill you, and that's why you have to start from day one, because you will avoid a lot of the heartache, a lot of the stress, a lot of the booby traps by getting that feedback from day one. There it is. Start from day one. That's my best advice. Got some other videos that I'm going to put on the screen for you to watch. I got a lot of pitch deck advice, but if I had to wrap it all up into one piece of advice, solid, my best piece of advice right from the beginning, start from day one and see where it takes you. And by the time you are ready to raise funding, your product is there, you are going to be so good at this, you're going to be prepared, and it's not going to be like a babe in the woods, a fish out of water, or deer in the headlights. Whatever metaphor you want to use, you're going to learn all the lessons along the way, and you're going to thank yourself, and I hope you thank me. Love to hear your feedback. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.